Get your man the Flute to play song, the fuck.
Dear Gwetch, everyone, Kajima Tashiv, and welcome back to episode number 94 of the Inline G Flute podcast with me, your host, motherfucking Inline G. It was a very wet kiss. I'm sorry for the audio listeners there. I'm sucking on a fisherman's friend. I am desperately trying to get off the vapes, lads. They're killing me. I can't keep vaping at the rate I'm vaping. So I thought if I get fisherman's friends, every time I fancy a vape, I'll just pop one of them in. So yeah, every time I get the urge to vape, I suck on a fisherman's friend. And if I get too strong an urge to vape, I suck on the fisherman as well. It's awful. The vapes are killing me, man. They're fucking killing me. Last week, I was out with friends and like, oh, let's go get some vapes. And I was like, I'm going to buy cigarettes and take the healthy option. Smoking fags was the healthy option. I got through one cigarette, like half a cigarette. And I was like, that is disgusting. I can't handle it. So now I'm just sucking on fisherman's friend, which is so boring. But I need to look after myself. Over the Inline G isn't going to be around forever. I want to see episode 100 at least around here. So anyway, guys, it's good to see you again. Another solo episode. I know. Everyone's been speaking to me about how many solo episodes we've had recently. Lads, listen, I'm busy. I'm a really busy boy at the minute. There's a lot going on with teaching. There's some big news coming up with my orchestral performing as well, which I can't announce yet. Can't really announce it until May, but I'm very excited to announce it. And some solo gigs and stuff like that. I'm just really fucking busy in the nicest way possible. So I'm keeping my head above water. But don't worry, I've got guests lined up. I'm in Zurich this weekend. I'll be in Zurich when this podcast goes out, actually. If you know any flute players in Zurich who could be a good recommendation, last chance, send me a message quickly when you hear this and say, so-and-so's in Zurich, hit them up. Could be great. I have got two very special guests in communication at the minute to do a podcast. And they're living in Switzerland, if that's a clue to anybody. I pray that it happens this weekend, but it will be happening. We have got the green light. We're just looking for the timing. So this week's episode, well, originally I'd planned an episode on flute concertos. The history of flute concertos, my favourite ones, different recordings, the Baroque, romantic, classical flute concertos, and then going to the contemporary, and also a lot of music theory stuff about the cadenzas, all the kind of stuff that I love getting off to. But something happened this week, lads. My whole world has been turned upside down, and I can't not talk about this. This is the only thing I want to talk about. So the Masters was on. For anyone unfamiliar, the Masters is a golf competition. It's one of the four major competitions in the world for men's golf. So we have the Open, the US Open, the PGA Tour, and the Masters. The Masters kind of being the biggest one, the most prestigious. I think most people would agree. Now, first of all, you're probably thinking, who the fuck is this? Talking to me about golf? Who's this rich boy Tory? What do you call that? Nepo baby? Do Nepo babies play golf? Who plays golf, man? But in Belfast, where I'm from, if I haven't mentioned already, golf is a working class sport. We all play golf. A round of golf at my local golf club back in Lisburn costs like 12 quid. And you got to rent the clubs with that as well. It's nothing. We all play golf. A little bit. Not well. Well, some of us play it well. And that's why I watch the Masters, because our own boys there, Rory McIlroy from Belfast, is one of the best golfers in the world, if not the best. And I watch it every year for him because Rory in his career, bless him, we all love Rory, has won 3 of the 4 majors, but he's never got the Masters. And he's always came close. In 2011, he came so fucking close. He was a 3-stroke lead going into the last of the 4 days. And he had a massive meltdown. His playing just turned to shit. Which also, from a psychology point of view, sports psychology and music performance psychology, identical. Identical. And the whole phenomenon of choking in a big occasion or the pressure getting to you, this is identical situations between music and sport. And I'm going to do an episode on that as well. It's fascinating. But anyway, he melted down. And then every year at the Masters since then, we turn it on to see if he can win his last major. And every year, at some point in the 4 days, he has his meltdown. Like clockwork. But this year, he got to the 4th day and he was in the lead. And he was looking good. So I thought, I'm going to watch this. So I watched it with someone. And we sat down and watched it at 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever fucking time it was by the time it was over here. And Rory won. And I cried so much. And the person I was with didn't know golf or understand golf. Didn't really understand this connection that we have with Ireland and Belfast. And I was saying, because it's so important to us as people from Belfast to see our own do this. It's so important to us. It made all the news. It's all anyone's been talking about back home for the last few days. We're all so proud of Rory. So for that reason, first of all, I've got my 1990 Northern Ireland jersey on, my Northern Ireland cap, and I've even changed the colours of the lights to green. All for Rory and Belfast this week. Now, I put this up on my Instagram. I talked about this there, and people flooded in with messages going, why are you so proud of him? He only plays golf. And I'm like, yeah, but he's from Belfast and we have this real attachment to it. And it got me thinking about nationalism within small countries and big countries, the role it plays. And then also thinking of our unique nationalism in Belfast and how that relates to sports stars and also music and how we get behind everybody and how that wouldn't be the case if people like Rory McIlroy, if he was American or if he was British, they wouldn't have that attitude. Then it sort of spun into a thing about how your artistic voice can change depending on your background and how this nationalism with small country versus big country and colonialism, imperialism, all feeds into an artist's voice. And I have an episode for you, so voila, pure inline G. So we're going to start here, guys, properly. First of all, why does it matter so much to small countries when we see our artists, our musicians, our actors, anyone doing well on the big international stage? Because let's be honest, you, dear listener, probably don't understand this because the chances are you're not from a small country. Now, that's not my assumption. That is just pure numbers. I get the listenership numbers to this and the demographics every week on Spotify. So on Spotify, 40% of the listeners here are from the United States of America. 16% are from the United Kingdom, 10% from Canada, 7% from Germany, 5% from Australia, 4% from Ireland, 3% from France, and then some smaller countries making up the 1%. Now, all those top countries, only one of them is not a major colonial or imperial power, and that is, of course, Ireland. But every other country there is a big country. And even in Ireland, I'm not sure what the breakdown is. I'm not sure if the Ireland includes Northern Ireland, the island of Ireland, or if it's uniquely the Republic of Ireland, and the Northern Ireland figures go to the United Kingdom. I don't know. So I'm not really sure on that. Also, I'm very disappointed Irish people only make up 4% of the fucking listenership of this podcast. Come on, lads, get in. For the Yanks in here. But because of those demographics, chances are, dear listener, you, my dear Liebe, are from a big country. So you probably don't get this. And there are some massive differences between being from a big country and being from a small country. I see it in Germany, although Germany is a weird one. I saw it in France massively, and I saw it in the United Kingdom when I lived there. It's very different. So big countries, when it comes to nationalism, they tend to have, first of all, big countries tend to have a colonial past. That's pretty much guaranteed. So big countries like the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, Holland, they all have strong colonial pasts that have defined the nations for a very, very long time. Now, I didn't put the US in there because people like to be like, oh, the US isn't colonial. The US is fucking colonial, okay? It's just the US is very good at sort of sweeping away its colonial past. First of all, there's a simple fact that the indigenous people of the land of America, they're gone. But then I also hear this whole thing of like Americans are white, by the way. Americans are fucking white. And you're not meant to be white when you're from some of the parts there. Like, you're not meant to be from Texas where it's fucking 1,000 degrees and 2 miles away from the sun and be white. All right, that's not the crack. So how did all the white people end up there? Well, fucking hell. But the Americans love to blame this on the British because it was the British Empire that brought that in, first of all. And then America got its independence, blah, blah, blah. But there's still other examples of colonialism. Now, I'm going to give you a great example. I found this out not that long ago. And it all leads into the podcast. World War II. There was the famous attack on Pearl Harbour. Now, because you guys are all American, I don't have to go through this too much, but 7th of December 1941, it's one of those dates that Americans actually remember. One of the few historical dates that Americans really cling on to and go, oh yeah, 7th of December 1941, Pearl Harbour. Now, we all know about it. We've all seen the movies. We've seen that shitty one with Ben Affleck. They're all out. But the movies and the books and the dramatizations don't show what happened after the Pearl Harbour attack. So obviously in Pearl Harbour, the Japanese attacked a military base in America. But for 9 hours afterwards, they attacked loads of different places. So they attacked various British and American territories as well. So most notably in the US, they attacked the USA, Hawaii, Guam, Wake Island, Midway Island, and the Philippines, all in this little period. And they had a massive go at the Brits as well. Now, at this time, the Philippines were actually under US rule. Fully US territory. So from 1898 until 1946, the Philippines were under US territory. They were part of the USA. It was a US territory. So Franklin D. Roosevelt, the president at the time, he was the commander-in-chief of the Philippines. He was the head of that. They saluted the Stars and Stripes banner. They sang the song. It was fully US territory. 16 million US citizens were in the Philippines during this time, in 1941. Now, after the attack, Roosevelt had to make a speech. And he did something fucking insane. Now, apparently he toyed with different drafts of this speech right up to the last minute. Eleanor Roosevelt had made a statement as well, where she had toyed with it. Loads of local different newspapers recorded it. And the headlines were always different in some kind of way, but there was a running theme. And the fact that Roosevelt toyed with this so much and still came up with what he did really bothers me. So, when he got to his final draft, the biggest attack on Hawaii was on an island called Oahu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, lads. It's hard to pronounce this shit, but I hope I got it right. I googled it. Oahu. Now, it's an island in Hawaii, and when Roosevelt was making his speech, he referred to it as the American island of Oahu. And he also said something like American military and naval forces were attacked, and he said many American lives were lost in this attack. But when he went on to talk about the Philippines, which he didn't really, by the way, you go listen to the speech, he barely fucking mentions the Philippines. He never once refers to them as American or US territory or US owned. Not one fucking word. And that is not an accident. That's not a mistake. Essentially what happened was Hawaii and the Philippines had similar statuses for the US. They rounded Hawaii up to American and they downgraded the Philippines, rounded them down to foreign. Why? Well, a couple of reasons. The first one is obviously good old-fashioned American racism. Okay, Hawaiian natives they're whiter certainly than Filipinos are, so that's what it gets them a couple of points and brings them closer to being American. And geographically, Hawaii is quite close to America. We know this, so it was quite easy to sort of convince the US people that Hawaii's one of us. Philippines not so easy because obviously they look different and they're far away, and America has no business being over there. But anyway, secondly, it is a great way to sweep colonialism under the rug because that's what it was. It was colonialism. The American occupation of the Philippines was pure colonialism. If Roosevelt, for example, starts referring to the Philippines as the US, most Americans can't digest that. They can't swallow that. So the Philippines were being destroyed at this time. And as Roosevelt made his speech, there was a lot of people in Manila especially, listening to it on speakers to hear what Roosevelt was going to say. Their commander-in-chief, their president, they were told they should support him. And he didn't say a fucking word about them that referred to them being US territory, US owned. He left them out to dry, stuck them under the bus because he knew Americans wouldn't digest it. They couldn't get their head around the idea that that was part of them as well. So they wanted it's like a situationship. They wanted all the benefits of having the Philippines, but they wouldn't fucking commit. They'll pop around 4 times a week to sleep with them and give them a smooch in the morning, but they won't go meet their mother. Bastards, alright? Bastards. But sure, look at that now. Look now, Trump is trying to buy Greenland. That's pure colonialism. That's pure old-fashioned colonialism, and he can get the fuck. So, nationalism presents itself very differently with big countries, or we can refer to them as colonial countries. It's usually very institutional, so it's really built into everything that goes on around major institutions. It's very symbolic, and it is often tied to military power, state power, and global dominance. Okay, so let's look at a few examples. France celebrates their military like fuck. It's weird, actually. As someone who lived in Paris, they celebrate like fuck. You have Bastille Day, which is the 14th of July every year, and that is like France's national day. Huge shows of military strength. So you have the military bands. They'll be walking around Place de la République, I think it is. Anywhere, somewhere around there. And you have like the fighter jets flying over the Eiffel Tower and putting the colours up. It's all very military centered. It's fucking weird. And then French culture and French identity is very heavily tied to, how do I word this? Like cultural superiority, I want to say. Being French is being better than everyone else, being the best at it. We're the best at cooking, we're the best at poetry, we're the best at literature, we're the best at everything. They have to be the best, and it's superiority, which often blurs the lines and sort of excludes the role of any non-French influences, which are there in all these great things France has done. Foreign or non-French influences are very present in it, but the French don't want to admit that. Perfect example, when the French football team won the World Cup, everyone was so proud of them. They're all French. They're great because most of the players are immigrant background. So also, misconception about that French team. When they won the World Cup in 2018, one player out of the 25-man squad was not born in France. All the others were born in France. Okay, their parents might have came from different parts of Africa where France fucked them, different form of colonial powers, and they've moved people to places like Senegal, and they would have moved, or Tunisia or whatever, and they've moved to France. One fucking player wasn't born there out of 25, I think it was, or 28-man squad. When France won the World Cup, they're all French. When they lose, they're all foreigners. They're all Africans. They don't give a fuck. Typical example. Now, move across the border to Germany, another big country. Very different with nationalism. obviously, German nationalism is frowned upon a little bit since the war for very obvious reasons. But there is a bit of a comeback in some ways of German nationalism. It's changed its coat. It's now, Germans are very proud of being a world leader in the arts. They're very proud of their music, and especially their classical music, and how well they're doing, and saying, we lead the world in that. That's the new German nationalism. But even then, they have to be very careful about it. So they're very proud to play things like Mozart and Bruckner. Wagner, for example, you don't hear much Wagner. You hear way too little Wagner in Germany for how much they could do. The Wagner Festival is at Bayreuth or Beirut. There they play shitloads of it, but in Cologne or Munich or Berlin, you're not going to get a lot of Wagner concerts. Not relatively speaking. You get you get a few every year, but not as many as you think. Now, we all know Wagner had strong ties to being anti-Semitic and the anti-Semitic movements, but that's actually not the main reason why he's being shunned. All Wagner's themes in his opera were based off these huge German folk tales from thousands of years, these epic tales of warriors and kings, and he put that into his operas. So all his operas are based on this huge German mythology tradition, which was then adapted by the Nazi Party during the Second World War to drive up propaganda, essentially. So they told these huge mythological and mythical tales of German heroes and the forest and the castles and the role they have to play and their racial superiority and blah, blah, blah. They played that card heavy, the Nazis. So now doing anything that's heavy associated to German mythology is viewed as being a little bit Nazi, too nationalistic, which is a little bit of a shame, because I know a lot of Germans will go to Ireland and do storytelling courses from Sean Keys in Ireland, where they learn the art of storytelling. And when Irish people talk to them and they hear the stories they have, they're like, you should be telling those stories. They're fucking great. But Germans are like, nah, we can't tell those mythological stories because they're not looked on in the best way. But unfortunately, nationalism, old school nationalism, is on the rise again in Germany. The boys are getting the band back together, but it's not too bad here. Like, the AfD didn't do as well as we thought they would in the election. Fuck them. And yeah, fuck any German who gets too nationalistic. Now, let's move on. The UK, for example, as well, especially England, they love their military pride. It's fucking weird. The one big example of that is the poppy. People wear the poppy every year in November time to commemorate any soldiers in the British Army. Now, it doesn't mean a specific war. It can just be members of the British Army or the British Armed Forces in any war. But you have to wear your fucking poppy. If you turn on British TV anytime in that month, everyone's wearing a poppy. Everyone. You go out in the street, everyone's wearing them. They're so important, and you get judged so much for not wearing them. Now, I don't wear the poppy anymore. I did when I was a kid because I was just told to. I don't wear it anymore because I think the British Army had no place being involved in Belfast and in Derry, especially with Bloody Sunday. I'm not being disrespectful to it. I'm just saying I'm not wearing it. I'm not wearing something that commemorates the British Armed Forces. No. You're from Belfast. You can probably get it. And I remember even in when I studied in Royal Welsh College of Music, because it was a Royal College of Music, you were pressured to wear a poppy when you were performing and stuff. They were like, you are a representative of this college, you have to wear a poppy. And I'm like, well, you can go fuck yourself. I'm from Belfast. I'm not wearing it. Same thing when we graduated. There's two national anthems in Wales. There's the Welsh national anthem, then there's the British one, which is God Save the Queen at the time, God Save the King now, because Lizzie's popped her clogs. I was like, I'm not singing the British national anthem. I'll sing the Welsh one. I'm not singing the fucking British one. Not a chance. I'll sit down. I'm not singing the British national anthem. Go and look up what you did to us and then find out why I'm not doing it. Not even Irish people, Belfast people. What the British Army has done in Belfast is a disgrace. But anyway, the UK have an obsession with their military, and it's fucking weird. And the US, when it comes to the military, it is so weird what you guys do over there. Like the fucking discounts for veterans and everything. And people get so wound up in America. The minute you say anything anti-American, they're like, my brother fought in Afghanistan. And you're like, man, I don't give a fuck that your brother fought in Afghanistan. You worship the military in America to a point that is so strange to me. Like, wanking over the army for small countries is so bizarre. Ireland doesn't have a military. We have a peacekeeping force that goes out with NATO, but we don't have a military. We have the IRA. That's what we have. But seeing people walk around in uniforms, like in America, you see people wearing their uniforms, even though they're not in the army anymore. I'm like, that's weird. That's a weird display of power or dominance. It's just fucking bizarre. You can't do that in Belfast. You'd be shot. But the US kind of has two nationalisms. It has an inclusive one, which is the whole idea of the melting pot and the mixture of culture and the free world. And then you have the exclusive one, which is more aggressive. And it's like the overdog effect. The America are not underdogs in anything, okay? This whole thing, that narrative America loves to spin of being the underdog, you aren't the underdog in anything anymore. You were at Lake Placid all those donkeys ago, but you're not anymore, okay? America's overdog. It's overly powered. It's too strong for everything, and Americans are very proud of it. Now, small countries. Let's switch the narrative here. Small countries, as we say, so big countries are colonial. Small countries are often colonized, and therefore they have a different attitude towards nationalism, because if you've been colonized, for example, as Ireland was for 800 years, you will see for a very long time an attempted destruction of your culture, your language, and your customs. So the easiest way to colonize a country, destroy the language. Take away their language, they've got nothing left. I actually heard a beautiful phrase about this recently, where small country nationalism is all about keeping the light on. And that's very poetic. It has a tender, emotional, almost nostalgic feel to say our whole country's identity is based around keeping the light on around here. That's beautiful. And that is what it is. Like, if you take Ireland as an example, we have traditional music, we have our language, we have our Gaelic sports. All these things come from a Celtic tradition that existed before the British invaded. And then the British Empire tried to destroy it actively. And it's a revival of those things that we've lost so long. And we're seeing that revival very much so at the minute. Ireland's having its real moment in the sun at the minute. And it's all to do with acts of resistance, peaceful resistance against the British Empire. Speak your own language, play your Gaelic sports, play your songs. Lilting, for example. Has anyone heard this phenomenon? It's very popular on TikTok at the minute, of lilting, where instead of playing an instrument, Irish people are like, lee. I can't lilt, obviously, but they sing the tunes and go lee, and then make the noises. The reason for that was because British army members took the instruments off people, saying you can't play your Irish traditional music. So if you played the fiddle or you played the flute and you knew the tunes, instead of playing it, you go into the pub and just lilt it, because they can't take your voice away. Everything about Irish culture is a response to resisting against the British Army or the British Empire. And you see this in all kinds of small countries like Finland or Estonia or anywhere that was former USSR, especially. They have the same thing. They preserve their own language, they promote their own arts, and you'll also see a huge influence of folk songs or folk culture that really blends in, because it's how you get your national pride. Big countries don't have folk music. They don't have folk. Germany doesn't have, German folk music doesn't really exist. It goes way before Germany before you get that. There's no real French folk music. There's Breton music, but that's Celtic. There's no folk English music. There's no American folk music. It's not really like that. It's different. American folk music has developed since the 40s and 50s, but fuck's sake, it's all because of the slave trade. Yeah, anyway. I've been chatting to a lot of Georgian people recently, and Jesus Christ, you talk about a country that's been fucking rid both ways for about 2,000 years. I thought Belfast had the shitty end of the stick until you hear the history of Georgia. Georgia the country, by the way, not the shitty American one. And one of them had said to me when we were talking about this, because we were bonding over this, I was like, man, Belfast and Georgia, it feels like we share a lot of things here. And they're like, yeah, we just want to be left alone to eat our food, drink our wine, and have a wee dance. I was going, that's it. I get that. And we're the same in Ireland. We just want to be left alone to do all those things, except we have a little bit of a difference because we are a white, Western, first world country. So we've got a huge benefit as being one of the very few former colonized countries that fits those boxes. So we have a role to play, and we have a huge worldwide cultural influence. Ireland has no military, but the cultural influence of Ireland across the world is massive. Everyone loves the Irish. There's an Irish pub no matter where you go in the world, especially in the States. So we do have this little sense of duty that, okay, we don't really want to be left alone with our music and our sports and our language. We want to do all these things, but also cause some trouble for the big boys. Be a bit rebellious, be a bit of a prick with it. And that's important to us. So when I looked at different countries with this, small countries, a lot of them have a big tradition of classical music when it comes to this. Obviously, a lot of them have composers. But even in the modern world, you're seeing a lot of small countries really overwhelmingly, or overwhelmingly isn't the right word. There's too many of them, as you would expect. What's the word for that? Fuck, Gareth. I need a vape. This is the problem. The vaping keeps my brain going. And I just have to stuck on Spetsy. Anyway, overrepresented, maybe? Is that the word I'm looking for? Finland is a perfect example of this country. Finland has way too many fucking musicians and composers and conductors. For a country of 5.5 million, Finland is fucking smashing it in the classical music game at the minute. You look at the conductors, first of all. You've got Esa-Pekka Salonen, one of my favourite fucking conductors. Honestly, one of the best there is in the game. An absolute fucking incredible conductor. He was principal conductor of the Philharmonia Orchestra in London for a long time. He was director of the San Francisco Symphony. I think he was involved with the LA Philharmonic as well as a musical director or guest conductor. He's done everything. You got Jukka-Pekka Saraste. He used to be the director of the BBC Symphony Orchestra. He also was musical director here in Cologne at the VDR Symphony Orchestra. Incredible conductor. You got Mikko Frank, or Frank, I think that's how he says it, Mikko Frank. One of my, if not my favourite conductor, but definitely in my top 3. Mikko is incredible. Conductor of, in my opinion, the best orchestra in the world, or my favourite orchestra certainly, the Radio France Philharmonic, or if we're going to say it in French, the Orchestre Philharmonique de Radio France. And the principal flute there is, of course, Magali Mounier. She's mentioned in every episode. We got her in again. 2 principal flutes, actually. Mathilde is also there, Calderini. But that orchestra, that flute player, and that conductor, Mikko, Magali, and the Radio France Orchestra, that is a heavenly combination. And Mikko is doing amazing things. He's a fucking class conductor. Susanna Malki, an amazing woman. She was director, I think she still is director, of the Ensemble Intercontemporain, which is like the contemporary music ensemble in Paris. An amazing ensemble, like one of the world's best for contemporary music. The flute player is still Sophie Cherrier, who is one of the 2 principal flute teachers at the Paris Conservatoire. But Susanna was also guest principal conductor, I think, of the LA Philharmonic too. And she's played with or conducted every fucking orchestra in America and Europe now. She's smashing it. And then you think of flute players, like one of my favorite flute players, not my favorite, but top 3, is Petri Alanko. I've talked about him in this podcast before. An amazing flute player. I got his album of Iber and Jolivet and Nielsen Concertos when I was a kid. I got the album. I found it on Spotify. One of my favorite albums of this day in classical music. It's fucking incredible. And then you look at social media flute stars. 2 of them are Finnish, man. R2 and Nanu, who R2 flute, because his name's ARTTU, I want to say. Sorry if you're listening, R2, I got that wrong. But he has R2 as an R2D2 in his handle. And you got Nanu. I'm sure you've all seen her as well. Doing amazing stuff. And they're both Finnish. They're not Finnish, they're only 28. I really hope someone is thinking that reference when I'm talking about Finnish people. There's a really famous example of, sorry, this is totally unrelated, but there was a phone in on a Scottish football show. And the goalkeeper for Celtic at the time was a guy called Antti Niemi. He was from Finland. And they'd just announced the Scotland national team. And a guy phones in and he goes, I cannot understand why Antti Niemi has not been picked for the Scotland squad. He's been so good this year. How has he been overlooked again? And the presenter goes, Antti Niemi? He goes, yeah. Antti Niemi? Yeah. He goes, he's Finnish. And the guy goes, he's not Finnish. He's only 28. And it cracks me up every time. He's dead serious. Anyway. And you can see the reaction of Finnish people supporting each other. And like Finland has this national pride around its classical musicians now. 5.5 million people, by the way, and they're running the game. That's incredible. And if you look up the history of Finland, you can see why there's a lot of rebelliousness in this. And it's so cool to see a country that's been fucked as much as Finland has running one of the high European art forms. It's class. Now, we have the same thing in Ireland, and we have it even more specifically in the north of Ireland or in Belfast or Northern Ireland, whatever one you want to call it. Because obviously Ireland was colonised and under British rule for a very long time, but we're still under British rule. And we had a civil war that only stopped in 1998. So our regional pride, or national, regional, whatever you can call it, is even stronger. And we have a population of less than 2 million people in Northern Ireland, and we are fucking smashing it in so many different ways. I'm going to run through that now. Just quickly before that, actually, before I get on to that, an artistic voice within small countries, Patreon read. I need to do this. Okay, super quick one this week. The Inline G podcast is free. It'll always be free. That is a motherfucking guarantee. But if you want to donate to the podcast, you can now do so through the Patreon. On the screen now is the address. And for the audio listeners, it is patreon.com/the Inline G Flute podcast. It costs you €5 a month. Lads, here's the crack. I do the entire podcast on my own. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work. I love it. It's one of the best things in my life right now. Sponsors will not come on. If the sponsors come on, they're going to want me to stop swearing, stop slagging off America, stop talking about Palestine, stop talking about mental health, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that, so sponsors can go fuck themselves. Instead, it's self-funded. And the fact is, this is the biggest flute podcast in the world, and it is fully listener-funded, and it is funded. I'm making money from this. I haven't used the money yet, but they've got big plans for the money. But we are going to do something with it. So, listen, donate if you can. It's €5 a month over in Patreon. Basically, you're keeping the podcast alive. and you're building a beautiful community here, and it means so much to me. You can jump out at any time. If you can only afford it for 1 month, jump in for a month, give me a $5 and fuck off. Look at it as buying me a pint to say thank you for giving you 4 episodes of this podcast every single week, every Friday, come rain or shine. But listen, if you can't afford it, don't worry. Someone else is paying so you can listen for free. It is a system based on kindness and soundness. Anyway, so Northern Ireland. We are punching above our weight in fucking everything. We look at sport. 4 different sports we have produced arguably the greatest in the sport, or certainly the top 5 in every sport, or top 3 in every sport. So you look at Joey Dunlop as the first one, a motorcyclist, won unbelievable amount of titles. Joey Dunlop is widely viewed to be the greatest motorcyclist of all time. Incredible. Next up, we got Rory McIlroy. I know a little bit more about this. I'm not a huge expert in motorcycle racing. Golf, I know a bit more about. Rory McIlroy, one of 5 people to ever do a career Grand Slam. The last one being Tiger Woods, and the last one before that being a fucking long time ago. Rory is one of I think he's world number 1 now officially. He's one of the greatest golfers of all time. Getting that career Grand Slam has guaranteed him that. He's from Belfast. Carl Frampton, one of my heroes personally, a boxer, won 3 world titles. 2 world titles, 3 different weight classes, or 3 world titles, 2 different weight classes. 2 weights, 3 world titles. Nearly had a 3 weight. But he was Ireland's first ever 2 weight world champion with 3 different world titles. He won fights against some of the biggest stars in the world sport. And it was always in America, because obviously when you fight at that level, you have to go to America. I remember staying up late one night to watch him beat Leo Santa Cruz when he won the featherweight championship of the world. It was in Vegas, I think, that year. It was all news. We had a big party that night at my house. And we stayed up to whatever time. I remember Carl being interviewed about it, and the American being like, "Hey, Carl, how are all your fans back in Belfast, Northern Ireland, going to stay awake to watch you fight?" It was like 3:30 this fight. And he's like, "Have you ever heard of Buckfast?" I was like, "Carl, you're one of our own. We love you." I stayed up all night drinking Buckfast. And then when he beat Santa Cruz and they held his hand up to say new featherweight champion of the world in Vegas on national television, so loud, I was in tears. It was awful. It was one of the best moments I've ever seen. I was so proud of him. Football, Georgie Best. Okay, this one's an old one, but still, George Best was arguably one of the best footballers of all time. We'd put him alongside not Ronaldo. We put him alongside Maradona, Pele, Messi, George Best. That'd be the 4 for me. George was playing back in the 60s with United. Manchester United won the European Cup, won everything there was to win, one of the legends of the game, won the Golden Boot, or no, not the European Golden Boot. What was it called back then? Was it the European Golden Boot? Anyway, it's the equivalent of the Ballon d'Or at this moment in time. So we have one of the greatest footballers of all time. The reason he's not known worldwide is because he's from Northern Ireland, and we never qualified for the World Cup, so no one got to see him play at a World Cup because the national team was too shit. Can't do it all on his own. So we've had leading stars in sport for a long time. Music, we're doing all right as well. All right, we're doing fucking fine in Belfast. We're smashing it as well. Kneecap are obviously taking over the world at the minute. They're doing great. Also, I went to see them at Coachella last week. Their stream got cut. Kneecap stream got fucking cut because during Coachella they started singing Maggie's in a Box, referring to Margaret Thatcher being dead, and then did a whole thing with pro-Palestine. Coachella cut it. Fucking Kneecap got like 20,000 Americans or something ridiculous singing Maggie's in a Box. Fucking up Kneecap, man. They're doing great. We've had other musicians from the north of Ireland. We've had Van Morrison, Snow Patrol, Stiff Little Fingers, The Undertones, Gary Moore. Amazing. Then if you switch over to classical music, we've had 2 world beaters in classical music. So the first one was Barry Douglas, a pianist, the first ever non-Russian pianist to win the Tchaikovsky competition in 1986. The video of him playing Pictures at an Exhibition by Mussorgsky is still on YouTube. Unbelievable. We were so proud of Barry that he went from Belfast. The first ever non-Russian to win that competition was from fucking Belfast. That's incredible. And then obviously the other world beater, as you all know, because I talk about him all the time, Jimmy. Our Jimmy. Sir James Galway, the greatest flute player of all time. Now, these both are incredible in their own right from a population of 1.5 million, but to go even further, we do not have a conservatoire. We do not have a dedicated third level institution for studying music. You have to leave if you're going to make something of yourself in Northern Ireland. If you're going to study music, you have to leave. The fact that we've had 2 of the best in the respective instruments is ridiculous. It's fucking insane. We shouldn't be having these numbers, and it's why, for that reason, I will defend Jimmy to my fucking dying day, because it's so cool these days to like hate James Galway and be like, oh, it's a bit too much and blah blah blah. You're all jealous. I'll tell you what, green doesn't look good on you. Looks good on me. Doesn't look good on you. I'm jealous, boys and girls. Because in my opinion, undeniably the greatest flute player of all time. Jimmy's the best there ever was. The things he can do on an instrument are unbelievable, obscene. No one else can recreate that. No one ever will create that. And beyond what he can do, what he achieved, Principal Flute, the two biggest orchestras in the world, and then Principal Flute of arguably the greatest orchestra of all time, which was the Berlin Philharmonic under Herbert von Karajan, and he left it to go solo. And then he got to the charts, and he's got a knighthood, and he's played in every fucking venue. He's been platinum. He's achieved way more than any flute player ever will. We will never have someone that will get to that level again in our instruments. Ever. It's just not going to happen. Emmanuel's doing really well. He's doing great stuff, but he's not going to be the level of Jimmy. He's not going to be that popular. When I'm back in Belfast, if I tell anyone to play the flute straight away, oh, bit of a James Galway, are you? You get that in America as well, to be fair. The greatest flute player of all time is from our wee country. He's from Belfast, and we're so proud of it. And this is what Northern Irish nationalism is. And we're so proud of it. It's not like the US where your nationalism is fucking shooting a gun and having an eagle scream and then going and fucking invaded some whatever the fuckistan to get the royal. No, we do this through music and art and sport. And we beat the Americans. That's what we're proud of. We go and beat the Americans to it. And in the flute, we're not doing too bad. You know, Jimmy's obviously the obvious one. But we have loads of great flute players walking out of Northern Ireland, which is, again, way too many for a country that small. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Gareth McLaren. He's doing amazing stuff from Belfast. Emer McGeown, one of my favourite players. Great Irish flute player and a great classical flute player. She's doing amazing stuff. Aisling Agnew's been on this podcast, or Aisling. Amazing flute player, doing fucking class stuff back in Belfast with the Hard Rain Ensemble. Colin Fleming, who just left the Ulster Orchestra, retired after God knows how many years of service. Incredible. He was in the Von Karajan Academy under Jimmy back in the fucking 80s. He's an amazing player. And you know what? I'll throw myself in there as well. Not on flute playing ability. Nowhere near these people. But the fact that the biggest flute podcast in the world is run by a guy from Belfast, I throw my own fucking name in there as well. Why not? Because in Belfast, the success of one person stands for the voice of many. And especially with music. This is so important to us. In Ireland in general, it feels like in the US, music is an industry, and in Ireland, it's part of the family. So we're going to get more onto that, but also quick one before that. Bonus, Belfast also has the sexiest man in the world. Undeniably, officially, the sexiest man on planet Earth. No, it's not me. I know what you're thinking. Hey, you stop that flirting. Hey. Do you want to get a drink? It's not me. I know you. I'm as shocked as you are. I didn't even make the top 5. Officially, the sexiest man in the world was voted Jamie Dornan. Mr. Grey himself from 50 Shades of Grey. He's from Belfast. And we all look like that there. So I'm not telling you all this. I'm not telling you how great Belfast is, Northern Ireland is, to brag. Well, I am a little bit. But just a little bit. But this specific nationalism can have a very strong effect on an artist's voice. And that's so important. And that's what I'm trying to get across here. That's what I've been toying with this week in terms of my thoughts. Because we don't make music in a vacuum. Okay? Every note you play, every fucking shape, every dynamic, it carries something within it of where we come from. Our background, our history, our identity, our accent, our landscape. It all sort of fucking seeps in to how we interpret music. Even music that isn't ours. It doesn't belong to us, but it's in the way we instinctively feel certain rhythms as opposed to the other ones. It's the colours that we're more naturally drawn to. It's the way we choose to phrase a melody based on our fucking accent. For someone growing up in a small country, especially one with a history of colonialism or cultural suppression, music feels more than just expression. It's resistance, it's preservation, it's verging on fucking survival, to be totally honest. Like, if you look at an Irish flute player, there is a deep connection with all Irish players. I'm not talking traditional players, I'm talking Irish players who play classical music. There's a deep connection to ornamentation. And you can hear it in the classical repertoire because we ornament in Ireland, and that's got links in itself to the Irish language and the way we phrase things. And there is this lyrical speech-like quality that in everything we do I think that's personally rooted in the storytelling tradition, the oral storytelling tradition of Ireland. And it's not something that's taught. You could teach it probably, but it's lived. It's a result of our background and our history. But then in contrast, if you look at musicians from larger culturally dominant countries, They grow up with their traditions already canonized. What they're doing is understood. You guys know what you're doing. There's rules to it. There's sets to it. It's your art form, essentially. So I feel like the identity of those people can be a little bit more diluted in the music because the music is already speaking in their voice, if that makes sense. So, but when you're from a smaller country or from the margins, geographically, politically, linguistically, making music can feel like you're adding your voice to a conversation that wasn't originally meant for you. And that changes how you approach music. It gives you urgency, it gives you freedom, and often it gives you this like sense of responsibility, not just to the notes, but to where you come from. And that's why it means so much when someone from a small country breaks through on the world stage. Their success isn't just personal, it's communal. It tells the world, we're here too. We have something to say, and it sounds like this. And that's why I'm so proud of Rory. And that's why I cried when I saw Rory. And that's why I cry every time I see Jimmy. You're doing it for us, boys. So I'm not saying all this to make you jealous, lads. Again, the best thing about music and art in general is that it is a universal thing. It has universal appeal. I hope that sharing this side of the coin will let you feel connected to smaller countries, especially for our boys and girls and all in between over in Belfast. You're all welcome. Anyone listening to this podcast, you're all welcome to become honorary Northern Irish people, Belfast people, and bonus points if you can do the accent. So if you want to become one of us, you're already halfway there. All you have to do is make sure to stay up late to watch Rory next time, even if you think golf is shite. And that's where a bottle of Buckfast comes in. Sláinte, lads. I love yous. Have a good weekend.
Get your man the flute to play song, the fuck.
Been so crocky, hot the druids.